This is just so everybody knows. Yeah, I've like been basically forced into doing this. This is not for me. This prick over there. Mm-hmm.
This is after we semi-rearranged the sofa.
Don't even come.
You literally told me to do it.
I literally said to you to try out different angles. I didn't say rearrange the whole living room for you to then This
is going to be a very, very long podcast. Yeah. Just so you know.
It's going to be anxiety inducing. That's what this is. Fucking awful.
All right.
Okay.
So, oh God. One of the last. Given us a subject. Yeah, I haven't actually. Yeah. So basically, one of my last solo, episode 4 was about conditional relationships. And it's basically about, so like I said, like most relationships, they're supposed to be more or less like non-conditional. Like you meet people or you meet somebody and you see what you like about them, and then you find out later on things that you don't like about them, but you accept it for the most part. Whereas I think most of the time people meet people and then they decide, I don't like this, I like these things about you, but all these other things you need to change. And I think it would be fine, it wouldn't necessarily be a big deal if it went both ways. If it is, because you both have things you don't like about each other. But from what I've observed, most of the time it's one-sided. Usually one person is like basically calling all the shots through.
You're saying that because you're in a relationship.
I was going to say, this is very close to home, I feel.
I was going to say, honey, from what I've observed, like, are you all right?
No, but
from what I've observed.
But no, like for me and you, like we've been together.
You better get it right, boy.
Goes to 12 years. Is it?
It's 12 years, yeah.
At least 10 years, let's say that.
No, let's not. Let's stick to what it actually is. Let's not shave off 2. Let's not shave off 2.
I didn't shave off anything.
Yeah, you did. You shaved off 2. It's 12. Thank you. Yeah, no, bye-bye. End of.
I think one of the reasons why we do butt heads quite a bit, which you've observed, which I think is because I don't think we...
That's such a polite way to put it, isn't it? Butt heads.
Yeah, that manly laugh. Yeah, like we do butt heads quite a bit, but I think that is because
you're an asshole.
For God's sake!
No, you're not. You're
so.
I
can't get with. I mean,
Foghorn Leghorn. I like that show.
Good for you. Let's not digress. But yeah, like we do butt heads because we're not really in a conditional relationship, because for the most part, if there's something about me, it's something I do that you don't like, you're going to voice it, and vice versa. And I think we both kind of have a choice to try and be like, I won't say nothing, but I don't think we're necessarily...
We're just not them kind of people.
Yeah, we're not them kind of people. And I think, because it comes up in not serious things, but in a lot of little things, where it's like, little things with the kids or just...
Yeah, whereas I just think, seriously, why? Just go over it. Oh, God. Yeah.
But no, like, and again, like, it's a case of, so like...
He decided to go to me. All because I didn't go out on a roundabout when he thought it was the right time to do it. I was like, what, you think that's going to bully me into fucking doing what you want me to do? Ain't mate? Nah, all right. Yeah. I was like, you need to pipe down.
But no, like, and then like, so, okay, so me and you, we're now married. This is where you confirm.
Yay, we're married. My husband.
Happily married.
Happily married.
So you've got a married couple.
How many months?
3 months in. We've got a married couple here and you've got a single individual here. So I guess it's the case of like,
he's been on the journey with us for the last 12 years.
That's the thing, we've all known each other for quite some time.
He hated your ass for a very long time.
That's what you told him. No, but like, it's a case of like, and again, I don't just mean in just like coupled relationships, in pretty much all relationships, like, how
friendships
do you,
and stuff.
Yeah, like how do you navigate that? Is it like, because I always find my whole thing is about, I don't think anyone needs to change. I think it's just a case of address the elephant in the room. I don't think you have to necessarily decide, you know what, I don't want to accept these conditions. I think you can if you want, but I think at the very least be honest about them and like sort of have them out in the open to be like, you know what, if the other person is calling the shots and you are going to sort of be like, okay, then why not just sort of embrace that rather than sort of, because I think when you don't, that's where you kind of get this chip on your shoulder where, I don't know, like if especially when you're around other people and they see it and they may say something, and most of the time, like your friend or your family or whoever it is, they have more of a problem with it than you might do, or vice versa, wherever it is. And for the most part, I think people who are in conditional relationships, I think for the most part, they I think they're fine with that, because I think if you generally wasn't that happy with something, I think you would just, you just bail out. But I think most of the time those people are actually okay with it, but their friends and family may feel a type of way about it, and then and then that's usually what seeps in and creates sort of the issues of, okay, I have to say something, when really, for the most part, they're like, I'm actually don't mind about it. But yeah, but like, have you, like in your own sort of relationships, have you found that you've been in conditional relationships, or have you always been able to kind of stay true to yourself in terms of letting people know from the get-go, look, I'm not cool with that? Or have you just been like, you know what, I'll go along to get along?
Relationships?
Let's start with relationships. Yeah.
I don't think I've ever, like with Dean, I will name names.
I love it.
Don't.
I don't know if we were long enough for it to get to that point.
Was it like
No, I think I was always yeah. Do
you think maybe that? Do you think there's an element that, because how long was you sort of like involved together with, like in terms of from when you knew each other to when it sort of ended? Like, or do you feel like there's an element that because you did kind of, I guess, stay true to yourself, for lack of a better term, you think there's potential? Like, let's say if there was time when,
I think if I didn't stay true to myself, or I think if I was less, then we'd probably still be together.
Right? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I agree with that.
And I think that's what it is. I think it's that thing of, you kind of have to either, you kind of
that's kind of what creates issues, isn't it? Where you're challenging the other person for things that they think or feel, and you don't necessarily quite agree with that. So it's like you say, you either just shut up and put up with that situation, or you voice it. And I think sometimes over a period of time, it can wear thin, and then in the end you're like, am I actually going to change it? And it's not that you want to change this person, but I think trying to get them to see it from your perspective and the way that you see it, I think is really difficult. And I remember from your situation, he didn't get things the way that you got things, which then...
Yeah, but that's, vice versa. I didn't get things the way he got things as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like, because one of the things I mentioned in my episode was, like, is it really... I don't think, personally, this is just my opinion, I don't think it's possible to have mutual happiness as well as both of you generally being, like, completely genuine with one another. So like, I don't think I can completely stay true to myself in every shape, every way I know how, and you stay, completely true to yourself, and have that, and also still have mutual happiness. I think at certain points, I think it's going to give. Don't get me wrong. I think that's being in a relationship, though, isn't it? I think you're always going to have the elements of compromise. There has to be, because you'll never, unless you're two people that completely see things the exact same way and do things the exact same way, which is so unlikely, you're always going to have moments where you're going to succumb to the other person slightly to not just make for an easier life, but to savor a day or anything. It could be, you might not want to have a bad time or an argument, or at that moment, there's always going to be times that you're going to think, all right, we'll let that one slide, or I'm not happy with that, but I can't be asked. So I do think, unless you've got two people that are completely on the same wavelength with pretty much everything, which is just, I've never seen it. I just don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, I think because there's like, and I think that's the other thing as well. I think because I think it's that thing, and this is why I said, like, I think the main thing is I don't necessarily think people even need to really change. I think it's just a case of having the elephant in the room. As you said, that is a relationship. You might as well sort of, you kind of have to do a tit for tat. Sometimes you might get your way, I might get my way, sort of thing. And I think if you can get to the point where you can sort of accept that, I think
it's also being about being honest about that. I think the amount of conversations we've had about being like genuine and everything like that, you kind of bring up so many things, so you both kind of know what pages you're different on, so that then you're able to then address those different pages as and when they come up, but then you're both aware that you're not necessarily on the same page with those things, which then also does mean you're not being like like curveballed or whatever it is, like, you know, like it's coming as a shock. It's kind of like you're already aware.
Yeah.
You've both discussed it. You both are on the same page that, yeah, we're not on the same page with this specific thing, but we're aware of it.
Yeah.
There isn't an elephant. So you're not necessarily going to agree on everything, but there isn't an elephant so that when these things then do come up, everyone's aware.
That is true. Because, like, do you feel like it's like subconsciously, because you know, kind of, you're like, look, I'm not in who I am, I'm not really going to budge much. Not enough to sort of completely go without something. Do you feel like, for the most part, you sort of, that hinders you in terms of eventually finding somebody? Or have you got to a point where you're just kind of like, I'm not even fussed about it?
Oh, I'm not fussed about it. Nah. No offense to the married couple, but relationships are overvalued, in my opinion.
They're hard work.
They are hard work. It's not even the hard work. I just think a lot of the time you're very lucky to have a relationship that works for the long run.
And we wouldn't be able to, you couldn't say that this is a relationship that's worked for the long run.
No.
It's definitely not. It's definitely not.
Obviously, we'll have this conversation again in 20 years, you know, if you're still together, touch wood, whatever.
Yeah.
But
touch wood then.
Oh, gee, sorry, darling. Let me touch some wood for you, babe.
I think since X, I've just been more like, nah, I'm not fussed. If I find someone, great, but no, I'm not fussed.
I know what you mean though, because even like when me and Laura have had very honest discussions about our relationship, which I think for the most part has helped us, even though we do sort of butt heads every now and then. But I think I remember I said to you, like, I think if things were to end between me and you, I don't think I'd go out my way to try and, in fact, I probably wouldn't even get in another serious relationship. The fact, you know, we've got 2 kids or whatever it is, but I think there's
even some bitches out there now that are like, hey, let me try and beat this bitch.
No, what I'm saying is, like, I wouldn't, because for the effort, like, I feel like if I'm not, because I do think you kind of have to try and, you have to just pick somebody and make it work with them. I don't think there's necessarily, there's a, you know, Mr. or Mrs. Right for people. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely Mr. and Mrs. Wrong.
No, I don't necessarily.
Yeah, there is not this whole fairy tale.
No, see, I don't agree in that. Yeah.
Mrs. Right, Mr. Right, whatever.
No, but I don't
Absolutely
agree with that, what you just said, though, where you, what did you say again? How did you word it?
She doesn't agree with it, but she can't really
I'm so bad. I literally got such bad memory.
No, I said.
So it's not the missing bit, the bit that come before. What did you word it? You said that you kind of pick somebody and you kind of then just go.
Yeah, I think for the most part, you pick somebody and you decide, I'm going to make it work with you.
Yeah, but I think you have to have a certain element of ground foundations for that to even be the case. So I don't think it's a case of, I just pick this person, we make it work. There's got to be fundamental things within that before you decide to make it work with that individual.
I think so, but I think those things that you're talking about, which I'm guessing is, you know, chemistry, all these other things, sex, like attraction.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think those things are important, but I think they only carry you so far. I think they'll probably carry you about 10 years into a relationship.
All right, and now I'm getting a bit more wrinkly in that, but seriously, couple of kids in, come on, chill out.
In terms of, for like, if you think about, like, you know, like our grandparents and things like that, you know, for as long as they've been together, if you ask them, you know, what do you remember about your first 10 years of your relationship? They're going to be like, do you know what I mean? For it's such a blip in the grand scheme of things going down the line that it gets to a point where these things about, like, your chemistry, I think they help a lot massively, but they're very minor things later on down the line, because I think later on when you realize, okay, because there's people there's people that I've spoken to that I've got along with fine, but I would never ever get in a relationship with them, because I think to myself, no. But in the capacity of just friendship, you're just talking to them, yeah, fine, because those are the only stakes. They're very low. But if I had to then share my life with this person, and I had to then, you know, raise kids with this person, I had to go and meet this person's family, all this, I think. But
you got to think, mate, the only reason we've stayed together,
make that decision, may I ask?
What you mean with that?
Yeah.
Say that again. What was the question? I missed that bit.
So when did he pick you, I guess?
Oh, he picked me from...
You two started out as friends.
Yes, I'll tell you what,
benefits.
I said to her, there was a when me and my brothers we all lived in the house and our boiler wasn't working.
Oh yeah,
and don't get me wrong, we could have fixed it. We were just lazy, but we were just like, you know, it's quite somewhat of a Spartan household, and it was like for the most part she'd come, go home, get showered, and then come over and see me. And then when it came to staying over, it was a bit of a because me and my brothers we just like I said, the boiler was broke, so we had to boil the water on the stove, and we could have just gone and got like a regular bucket, but there was a mop bucket that weren't being used, so we just used a mop bucket.
I would just like to say I didn't use a mop bucket.
No, you didn't use a mop bucket. Actually.
No, I used you boiled it in the saucepan. This great big huge like African like proper like really good like rice saucepan.
I was just painting this picture of this, you know, go and you're just like, let's just get straight. Okay,
yeah.
No, it wasn't. I
was gonna say you can try and fluff this shit up as much as you like. But I don't think it's gonna. You were darling.
But I think I remember you saying it is the fact that she was willing.
But she was willing to.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? For her, if that was the price. For her, that was a small price to pay to spend time with me.
Yeah.
And bearing in mind, like anyone that knows Laura, she's a clean freak. She's a germaphobe. Our house was not a clean house. Like,
help my OCD.
But that and the thing is, it wasn't even like it wasn't even as if like when she decided, okay, you know, I'll have this, you know, this commando shower in your household. It was going to be a really, like, there was going to be loads of complaining. It was very much, she just cracked on it and it was fine. And for the most part, that was fine. It never came up again. But so, and I think so, you know, beyond us being attracted to one another, you know, laughing this and the other, that was enough of a sign for me to show that, okay, if push comes to shove, there's an element that these creature comforts that she's used to. Because I had a shower at her house, and when I had a shower, I would be in there for ages. I'd be like, I don't know when I'm going to...
Like 20 minutes. I was like, is this guy joking?
20 minutes.
Like, taking a piss.
It's just, I didn't realise well, because they had oil. I didn't realise how oil runs out. I used all that shit.
You know you've been there for a long time when the hot water runs
out.
When it starts getting lukewarm,
it was savage.
You just keep turning up.
I keep turning it up.
And it's like scalding hot for like 2 seconds, and then it goes back again, yeah.
But it was, but yeah, that was enough. Like that she like those creature comforts are a very small price to pay. For the things that are more important to her. Whereas there's just like way before I met Laura, there was just I've actually remember it was just like no, this isn't no sort of thing. So I think I think you are right. I think those things do they do help the foundation. I think
I would just like to say I think they do massively help, because the amount of times I thought you've been an absolute douchebag that I would just be like, peace to you. There's obviously other things that then keep you ticking over, because there's, you know, you're never going to get everything ticked on your list.
No, and I think you only need really a handful of things. Is that one, that you can rely on this person, two, that they're going to be like honest with you, and I think that's about it. I think you just need someone you can rely on, and someone's going to be honest. Because I think if you have those two things, if I can rely on you. And I know that you're going to be honest with me. That way I know that when you tell me you like me or you love me or whatever it is, or you're going to do something, you know what I mean? I can believe it. For them, you know, if the honesty bit is that if you don't like me, you're going to tell me. And I think I think for that at the very least, I think you need those. I think you need those two things. I don't get me wrong. I think other things help, but I think if you don't have those, then everything else is nonsense. I think if this person's, you know, speaking your love language, whatever it is, whatever new terms there are, or they're sort of, you know, fluffing your ego. I think that's all well and good, and then they're catering to your maybe whatever insecurities you might have. I think that's all well and good, but I think if you can't rely on them, and you don't, and you don't know if they're being honest with you. I think it's just really just BS, really. And I think I don't know, like I think especially in this day and age, where you know, everyone's got the word at their fingertips. I always think years ago it was easier because you didn't have your proximity, and that was it. Whereas now you've got people feeling like they can just jump ship.
Outtake. Yeah,
but yeah, like I think
because they expect it to be easy.
You know what I mean?
But that comes back to the fairy tale thing.
Yes, exactly.
You know, I'm sure they had a few films back in the day, but like my parents, I'm sure they didn't grow up watching Disney films where
Yeah.
there's a Prince Charming, blah,
So
blah,
true.
blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, like you said, the world's at people's fingertips. So as soon as literally a relationship gets hard,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm out. See you later.
Yeah. I think
I'll
that's
get
what
married
the.
in the first few months because I'm in my honeymoon period.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
realise, actually,
I don't
I
like
fucking
this.
hate this person.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then they're like, "Do you know what? See you later."
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
can leave. And people can leave. I've like,
Yeah.
if you're not happy,
Yeah, leave it.
leave, like, blah, blah, blah. But I think with like our parents,
Yeah.
stuck it out.
I think the
'Cause all
older
of it-
thing was like
Your
if
parents
it's
still married.
Yeah, yeah.
Mine are.
Yeah.
Yours are. Whether
And I
they're
think-
happy or not, we'll
Yeah.
never truly know.
yeah,
I
no,
think
you're
mine
so
are. But
you are so right.
they'll stick it out till
Because I think
Till
in
death.
our grandparents though era, it was kind of like if it's broke, you fix it. Whereas now,
if it's broke.
if it's
you
broke,
leave.
you get some. You
Yeah.
kind of get a newer model. You get a better thing. You kind of trade
Grass
it
is
in. You
always
don't.
greener.
Grass is always greener. And I think there is so much of that grass is greener now. Like so much.
And I think also, I think also like,
I think that's part of the reason why you two are still together, though, is because I don't know about from you. So I've known you a long time, obviously, but I feel like I know you inside and out.
Yeah.
Is because you've got that same
Mentality.
Yeah,
mentality.
100%, yeah. I don't get invested, and I don't see ends. I'm like, I'm in it and I'm going to work it. I'm going to be really, unless there's something that's catastrophic, that's like a deal breaker, done, then it's different. But I do feel like there's certain things like that I'm just like, we can work through this. We can do this, that and the other. There's obviously things that we're both aware that would be a deal breaker. I'm not going to work for any of that kind of nonsense. But in terms of just, working through with the children, communication, all of that, I'm a fighter in things like that. And I also, like you say, I've come from a family where it's not broken. So I've always, and my children are my life. So I wouldn't want them to have that kind of broken. So it was part of my job as a parent is to, I want them to see pure, genuine happiness and love. And that's part of my responsibility to make sure that they get to see that and what part I need to play to make that happen.
Yeah, I think it's like, again, about being like sort of being honest about this or the elephant in the room. I don't think that like when we're talking about these sort of genuine relationships and staying true to yourself, I'll say this: I don't think that's for everybody. I think, for example, I'll give an example. So when I look at my mum and dad, I think there's an element that they've stuck it out because they're committed to each other and this and the other. But I think a bigger reason, or the main reason, as to why they've stayed together, is because there's been very little influence from the outside world.
Yeah.
I think if I said to my mum, "Are you happy, my dad?" She'd be like, "What are you on about?" I think there's a part of it that would be like, I saw them kiss once, and that was at their silver their 25th anniversary. And even then, it was just like, okay, I guess that's what we're doing when we're in England. But for the most part, they're just like, because they'll not guess my parents are African, but but there is no, how do you make me feel? There's none of that.
Yeah.
For the most part, I think they've kind of just stayed together because what else are we going to do? I think for some people, and that's why I say like these kind of relationships, like the relationships that me and you sort of try and get to. And I say strive because I think it is a very difficult thing. I don't think they're for everybody. I think for some people it's a case of, you know what, let's just do the human thing of get together, procreate, and then let's crack on, and sort of let's just try and contribute to society in that way, rather than, let me try and find somebody I can get along with, rely on, depend on, have our ups and downs, but for the most part, we're passionate, we love each other, all of that. I don't think that is for everybody because I think it takes a certain level of courage to be able to say to somebody, look, this is who I am. And then if that means I lose you, then I'm willing to take that risk, but I need to stay true to myself. And for the other person to also sort of do that as well. And then for you guys to also stay together, because the truth is, you might not. And again, as you said, I think you'd be very lucky to get, because I think everyone has an opportunity to get that in that relationship. But you might meet that person when you was in school. You might you might not meet that person at all. So I think there's an element of sometimes it's and I think that's one of the reasons why the generation before us or generations before us, I think that's why they were able to stay together, because there was very little influence. I think sometimes with certain people, they're sort of, once they sort of get a taste of the outside world and they realize, or they think, as you said, the grass is green on the other side, that's when they're like, oh, wait a minute. And they realize it was just a case of, like I remember I gave that scenario, like example of, I think for the most part with life, people are kind of making their choices based on what's available to them. Like when you go into a restaurant, you look at the menu, you can pretty much order whatever you like, and you pick, out of all these things, I'm going to pick that. In life, that's not the case. We don't have we can't access everything, and we've decided I'm going to pick a 9 to 5. I'm going to pick that person. For the most part, these are our options. So I prefer this one out of what I see, so I'll go with that. But there's a whole other plethora of things that are sort of out there that I think if you do sort of get a glimpse of them, there's an element that who you are as a person will get tested. And I think when that aspect comes into relationships, I think if you lived on some Amish community, then yeah, you'll probably get together and it'll be fine. I think when you then start bringing in sort of social media and this that, and the other, I think this is where your relationship will start to get tested. And I don't think it's for everybody to be able to sort of withstand that kind of
Well, you've got to think
pressure.
of our parents, like you've said, your dad's only recently just got a phone, hasn't he? Like he doesn't even have a proper.
He's had a phone for a long time, but no, he doesn't have the only thing he has is some cycling.
Yeah.
App.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my mum's only in the last couple of years got a decent-ish phone that's kind of
they just leave their phones downstairs, don't they? They're barely
yeah,
even
they don't take them to bed or anything.
Worked out the fact that it's called a mobile phone. Honestly, he takes it cycling. Actually, does he? I don't know. He doesn't take it. He takes it to work.
But even that though, even my mum would get frustrated with dad being on the phone too long. Yeah. Sitting down, okay, we're not going to put this phone down now. Can we not? So I do think, and I think even us, if ever we went out for dinner or anything, we're not people that sit on our phone or anything. I'd find that utter disrespect. And the same.
You see, I'm sorry to say, I'm sat here now, and I'm struggling not to just be like this. I mean, completely digress from the actual topic, but I don't think I wouldn't find it rude if we went out for dinner and you were on your phone.
Oh, see, I just think, what's the point in us being there if we're on our phone?
I can talk at the same time.
I think it's different because I think because you guys have been friends for so long, you have that general relationship.
Correct.
So whereas I think, but that's the thing. If you didn't know, that well,
my dulcet tones
then
all the time.
you'd then be like, are you gonna fucking? Do you know what I mean? You then start sort of. I remember I watched the film. You guys ever seen a film called The Invention of Lying with Ricky Gervais?
Oh, I know of it, but I haven't watched it.
It's quite an interesting film. I mean, because everybody just tells the truth. She literally he goes on a date with this woman. I think it's Jennifer Garner. I think she's
yeah.
And she just says to him, "Yeah, no, I'm on a date with you because I'm a bit lonely. But really, I kind of need this extra intercourse. But I'd never ever procreate with you because you're fat, you're stubby, and I don't want you to be fat and stubby. So that's where we're at." And he was like, "Okay, I feel really insecure about that, but I'm going to stay here because you're the most prettiest woman I've ever been with." But it was do you know what I mean? But it was, for the most part, I think. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying everyone should just go and let people have it.
No, but you are that kind of person. You're a really brutal person. You're so intense.
I'm only honest with people that are
yeah, you're honest with people that you basically associate with on a regular basis, aka people that have to listen to the BS that comes out of your mouth.
I feel like only when it's necessary.
And to be fair, actually, both of you are arseholes in that. You're both very truth tellers. You're real life.
I don't consider being honest being an arsehole.
No,
when have I ever been honest to you and you've felt bad about it? Stand corrected.
No, I think that No. I think because you are both such honest. No, see what it is I think because you're both so honest, you kind of make me feel like I need to kind of be better, to be as kind of because I do think that there is elements of the fact that I would be. a bit sensitive to things. Whereas I think that there was a time with me and you, because we've obviously since the age of 2 or 3, we've been, together. So I feel like there was a point where you changed to the kind of person that you are now. There was a distinct moment. I remember it very well. So I feel like, and you suddenly became so much more brash and like, nah, fuck this. And it was really, and it's amazing. It's an amazing trait to be so honest. And I'm grateful to have a friend like it. And I think it does kind of strives me to try and be better, because I think that I'm not as good as being as a truth teller. I feel like I am honest, but I'm one of those people that kind of like fluff my honesty. I won't be as direct. Whereas what's the point in the fluff? Like, you just need to be direct, be honest. You're not doing it and saying it to be horrible.
Yeah.
You're doing it for the goodest intentions. Do you know what I mean? Some could be said for you.
But you see, so she's saying there's a distinct time where I changed.
Yeah.
And you accepted that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
I did, yeah.
So like,
I did, yeah.
Yeah, if you had been like, I can't deal with this.
Yeah, she didn't.
No. And I don't. Well, it's.
I don't think I've always been I'm not a horrible person.
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
you're not a
yeah,
horrible person.
But
No,
if
you're
you,
God,
you know,
no.
it's,
You're not. No. Firstly, your humor is just your humor.
right, okay.
No, you're so funny.
Would you like to hear a joke?
I don't feel like you're not a joke teller. You're just so. Like, what is it like? You're savage. You're savage. You're just you're so funny, and I would never want you to change. I think that you changed for the better, 100%. I didn't think there was anything wrong with the one before, the Sam before. But
yeah.
I just think that, but I think you are one of those pillars in my life that's so, I just couldn't do life without you. So I think that obviously with that, I'm so lucky to have someone so honest, if that makes sense. So I definitely think it was a good thing. And I feel
whereas
like
you could have been like you said earlier, even when it's like friendship groups.
Because if we go on to
that.
friendships then, so if we switch it, because obviously I know you said about friendships and relationships. If you go then on to friendships, I do think that some of the same things, I think if you take out the, the sexual and the attraction and everything like that, the elements that make it so that you're in a relationship, because relationships, when you're in a relationship with a partner, you've got other elements to it, like the sexual, them kind of chemistries. But I think when you think of friendships, you've still got so many of the foundations that you do have within in a sexual relationship, with a relationship that you've chose to spend your life with. Because I do think you choose your friends and you spend your life with them also, because they're, a big part of your life.
No, that is true, because I've come across people where I think, like when you were talking about, the situation where, Sam did then change from being this person to then I've witnessed friendship groups where like these people have kind of orchestrated themselves. They've had other situations with other sort of, they've had other relationships, and therefore, you know what, this is too much of that they just put themselves in this situation where everyone just kind of fluffs everybody, and they just kind of feed each other the egos. And I'm like, none of this is real. And it's just this weird environment where everybody's they're kind of slightly trying to one up each other, as well as trying to sort of, prop each other up on these sort of, on these pedestals. And it's this really weird sort of, there's very little genuine like conversations that are going on.
I find that really sad though, because I think because I'm so lucky and I feel so blessed and so lucky with the people that I have in my life, I have such genuine stuff with. I'm like, I really feel sad for people that don't have an actual genuine friendship, because if I know, and I've said this to you, I've said this to, my other close friends, like if you suddenly said to me that you didn't like me or some ridiculous, like if you're like in a playground, I can't ever see that happening, because I know we both respect each other enough that we would never do something so catastrophic that our relationship would end. But say if you suddenly randomly had a personality transplant and turned out to be like, nah, fuck you, Laura.
Personality transplant.
You know what I mean? Like where you said, no, because I know Sam, he wouldn't. I know I wouldn't. I know he wouldn't just start hating on me, and I know that I wouldn't do something that would make you hate me, because I respect and value too much.
Oh, but we're only young.
Behind.
Okay.
Here comes the honesty. But I'm like, see, now I forgot my point. What was I saying?
No, personality transplants.
Yeah. No. Oh, that was it. But if you did do that, I would feel similar emotions if I had a breakup. So it would hurt. It would just physically hurt me. I wouldn't I wouldn't be able to crack on with my daily life. It'd affect me so much that I would need to have answers. I would feel like I need to know. So I do feel like they're the kind of telling signs. Well, I say that, but you probably like if I sacked you off, you'd be like, that's one less person to have to listen to.
But things as you said, like the scenario you just gave would be a very an improbable situation that out of the blue, as you said, it has to be a personality transfer.
Yeah, I just know that because I think if you're in a relationship with somebody, friendship, or you know the other person, you know your mutual respect, and I know I would never do something. And that's what I mean. Like it's almost like if you, and this is the thing. I think even like with my friends, there's an element that like. Is that we the one key thing we have that we're all quite honest with one another. There's no like a lot of friendship groups I've seen. There's someone is the leader, someone's in charge, and someone sets the tempo. Yeah, definitely. If they say this is where we're going, that's where we're going. And there's this weird, and honestly, I think it's really weird. I think you have that when you're in school, you're all children. I find that whole but when you come to adults, there's no. Do you know what I mean? Where ideally, you should all be equals leave the playground. Everyone's equal. Do you know what I mean? But I think there's some people that, and this is where that's where you can, as you said, a telling sign where this is not necessarily a genuine relationship. But I think at the very least, there's nobody sort of, no one's saying, no one is a leader in terms of, okay, who says that this is what we're doing, or we look to this person to be like, what's the point of reference of whether or not we should go to this club or that club or this, that, and the other. And to be honest, luckily it'd been that way from the get-go, because I think we kind of just all happen to be that way. Now, saying that, with my group of friends, I've been out with them. I've been around them, around when they've been around other acquaintances, and it's not necessarily the same. Now, I'll say this: my friends have never been the ones that I've been doing the following, but there is an element that I can see that I've been in situations where I've witnessed it, and I'm like, had this been the situation, my friend would have said, if this had been me and him, he would have said, that's really dumb, don't do that again. Whereas in that situation, because the friendship isn't genuine, he's kind of just like, yeah, just let it slide. And for the most part, I can see it's just like, it's just an acquaintance, so there's no need to be. But there's an element of, within our friendship group, if someone's doing something really dumb, everybody will give their honest opinion whether they think it's silly or dang whatever. But there's no one sort of does this thing where they fluff each other up. So there's an element that if we ever all did fall out, or one of us did fall out, it would be because of a genuine reason. And I think that's where, I think for yourself, where you would be like, if I did fall out of you, there's a reason, there's a good reason for it. And if that genuine reason would be the very thing that would cause me to be like, okay, fine, good riddance to you, sort of thing. Because I wouldn't fall out of you over something very silly, because we have a genuine relationship. Like, if I hurt your feelings in a way, you tell me, and I'm like, I didn't mean that, so apologies, let's move on. But I think if you have if you don't have a genuine relationship, I think you can have situations where, because you don't really know each other in that way, just enough to say to somebody, look, I don't really like you talking to me like that, or I don't really feel comfortable with those jokes, or whatever it is. But I think if you have that genuine relationship, one, you'd know that this person isn't necessarily trying to target, like, it's not a personal thing when they're making the joke, it's just something that they do. I think as well, some of these things come over time, don't they? Because I think a lot of people, we all change friendships throughout our lives. You go into different jobs, you get different relationships. But I think when you get those real genuine friendships where you wouldn't actually have to say, not really appreciating that joke, because you have already kind of gone through all of that kind of stuff. Like you go through such a journey to get to that stage where you're like, this is like what's, like a die thing, like you die for the person. Do you know what I mean? Like you would genuinely do whatever you could. If they called you at any point, there'd be just no question.
Yeah.
I would
those
die
kind
for
of thing.
absolutely no one, just FYI.
Yeah. This is what I mean. You're so savage, and I love it. But no, you wouldn't. No,
I wouldn't.
Yeah. You even said to me not that long ago.
There's a bullet coming towards us. You best believe I'm using you as a shield.
Don't do that.
But it's that thing. But
nice.
I remember we were out one time. We came back from London. I think we were going we were coming. I think we were coming from Cambridge, and we passed through what do you call it? at the time, what was our hometown, and it was me and like 3 other groups of friends. Sorry, and 3 other friends, and we'd gone past what do you call it, the local pub or bar, whatever you want to call it, and there's 2 of the other friends there, and I remember we went there, and it was like if you guys have ever been out, there's a time of the night where it's just if you don't go home, you're gonna get in a fight. That's all it is.
Right.
So you kind of just need to. There's no more fun to be had.
No,
Just-
I know.
No, I do.
No, I actually do know. And I used to hate that part of the night. No matter, honestly, and you feel it in the air.
You
don't
looked
you?
at us like,
They-
do you know? Because you're looking at us like we're not much outers.
No, but I'm saying like it's
Literally
no, but for the
And
most,
we do know. I've experienced
No, for the
it.
most
I
part,
got
like,
punched in the back
you
once
just-
at the wrong time of night, and I was
No,
like,
but
it's my cue to leave.
But no, there's just them like sometimes some people there's I feel like there's 3,000 people. There's people who like censor, they're like nice weather, let's go home.
100%. Yeah, you
There's-
should do that.
There's the middle people that kind of be like, then there's the people that like I want to get in a fight, so I'm gonna stay.
Oh, horrific.
and then there's
They're
the middle
fuckers
people that are like-
starting it
There's the people in the middle who are like, I don't want to leave.
because I want to see it.
Do you know what I mean? So they kind of just linger around.
Oh, it's just.
And for some reason, this night
horrendous.
we were those people. Anyway,
Oh, you lingered. Oh, you were one of
no,
them.
but
You're a lingerer. He was in the middle category.
We were like kind of on our way home. We kind of and we saw these other friends and we're like, oh, I say hello, whatever. And anyway, there's some kerfuffle that was already going on, and then one of our friends, he joked and said, oh yeah, you take them ones, I'll take him. And then one of our other friends that was there said, hold on a sec, mate. It's 5 against 4. I'm not involved. You lot are fighting. I'm not getting involved. And for the most part, since school, he's maintained that. He's never ever tried to give off a vibe that is like, listen, he's like, look, I'll call the ambulance. I'll call the police. I'm not getting in a fight. Do not count me into your nonsense. And for the most part, we've always said like, we respect him because of that.
Honestly, I
because he's
feel
never
like
tried to
it'd
do
have
something
to
he's
be
not.
an attacky situation. If somebody attacked somebody that I really cared about and I was with, I would 100%. I wouldn't stand for
Well,
that.
no, but I think it's probably the situation was probably
Yeah, it wasn't a serious. It was,
No,
it was
that's
just.
what
it
I'm
was-
saying.
yeah.
There's no way. If one of my friends said, "Oh, I'm just going to go and punch this bitch," I'd be like, "All right, well, go do that then," because that's a silly thing
don't
to
involve
do.
me.
Yeah, don't. I'm not getting involved in that shit. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
But no, like I think
Nadanka.
for the most part, but like he's always like had our respect. I think even before we knew it, sort of even way back when, because I think that's one thing he's always sort of maintained. What do you call it? Like he's
I
been
think
very
it's, what,
upfront and honest
it's,
about.
it's not. I think things that sometimes people are lacking is consistency. I think when people are consistent, you know where you stand with that individual. And again, I personally don't think that's necessarily a bad trait because I'm a wussy, so I wouldn't definitely want to get involved in some horrendous. I don't like fights in any way, shape, or form. So yeah, I wouldn't want to be, but I respect it when people are consistent. But then I say that, but then realistically, if you're consistent punching, you're consistent. You'll go around punching people. Actually, yeah, I take that back.
But I know what you
he's
mean. though. I
consistent,
think-
but that's a bit.
I know what you mean, though, but
savage.
I think me personally, I think it always comes back down to self-awareness. Like I've never really been. I'll say never. In my latter years, I've never really been concerned about people giving me criticisms or saying negative things about it, because either one is true, and I am that person, so I'm like, yeah, it's fine. So what am I going to deny something that I know is true, that I'm aware of, or it's not going to be true, and I can just ignore it. Do you know what I mean? For the most part, but I think in terms of my own flaws and insecurities, I'm very much well aware of them. That if you was to then call me, if a particular trait of me that mine that I had was to cause me to act in a certain way,
Yeah.
I've got to a point where I'm never gonna then be like in denial and be like, do you know what I mean? Absolutely not. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not really fussed, and I guess for me, because I'm not fussed about that, I feel like to me I've got no problem to tell you you're acting like a twat, not you.
Yeah.
I'm just
You're looking at me while you say,
like, I'm talking to, you know what I mean? But no, I've never had a problem with saying to somebody, you're acting a certain type of way.
12 years, darling, I know. I've heard it
Because
so
for the most-
many times.
Because for the most part, for myself, if I was acting like a prick, by all means, tell me, because I'm aware, like, you know what I mean? I have that self-awareness that I'm behaving in a certain type of way. And as I said, it's either true, which is, I know that's who I am, or it's not true, and I can just kind of, I don't need to I can just ignore it, sort of thing. But I think if you have that self-awareness, I think when you then, and I think that was one of the things in that film, that Invention of Lying, everybody seemed to have a self-awareness of their situation, whether it's finances, their looks, their social status, whatever it was. Everybody had a self-awareness. So it kind of like the hurt almost came and went very quickly because it was there was no elephant in the room because it was always out in the open. So and you think to yourself, and it was only.
It's only when you're not used to something that it becomes more alien to you, isn't it? Like you say, if you're around honest people and you're used to people being honest, because if I look at you and your family, and I think even you and your family, I think very honest families, whereas I don't feel like my family are as honest.
I remember one time I was talking to my sister. No, we're going to watch Lord of the Rings. Out of the blue, she was like, your breath stinks. I was like, good God.
Okay.
So I was like, all right. But then she was like, okay, let's go see the film. So get some chewing gum next time.
Yeah.
But she like that was a regular thing. She just let me have it, and I was just like, right, okay. But then I just got used to it. And I was like, okay, well, I guess it does smell.
No, I think that's the thing. I think that you do get used to. I'm glad you sorted that one out. I do think you obviously do get used to, and I think that somebody like myself that hasn't come from that kind of environment, I think that's where. It's more, it kind of, you end up questioning like, oh, that's a bit harsh. But then actually, is it harsh or is it just they're just being honest, and it's not necessarily that they're trying to be, it's coming from a place of malice. It's just kind of just trying to tell you the truth.
Whereas, I think that if I think it usually is when, if you're insecure about something, which you haven't been able to get to a point where you can be like, you know what, this is sort of part of who I am, and I'm either going to change this thing or let's say it's something that you can't change. Like it's something that's just whatever it is. And you're just like, you're kind of just stuck with it. I think if you haven't got to a point where you've sort of come to terms with it because you're either trying to hide it or whatever it is, then I think that's where it kind of starts to get you because I think when someone does point it out, especially in such a blunt way, this is when that's when they kind of sort of, the denial and the insecurity starts to build up. And then this is when you get defensive. And I think it's a difficult thing to get defensive of as something that is both kind of is true, but you don't want it to be true. And I think it's you kind of just lash out in any way you can. Don't get me wrong. I think if when it comes to something like, if it's something you can change like your weight or whatever it is, or something like, I don't know, your hair, then that's usually that's a lot easier because you can just accept, you know what, I can either do this to try and sort this thing out, but I'm not going to, but the fact that I'm not doing it suggests that on some level I'm comfortable with it. So let me just kind of crack on about my business. But when it is, like I say, if it's something that's like, maybe it's a hereditary thing or something that you was born with from the get-go, and it has created this insecurity. I think if you can't get to a point where, if you can't try and get to a point where you're kind of, you really kind of accept that part of yourself in the form of having that self-awareness, I think this is where, as you said, especially, and if you're not in an environment where people are kind of letting you know what it is from the get-go, when you then experience that later on down the line, it can really, kind of quite rock you a little bit, where you're like, I don't know why I want to be sort of engaged in any social situations, because if you bring that up, I'm finished. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, I think it's a bit harder for more people. Well, it's more harder for some than others. But I think some people want to go on that growth journey and others don't they? And I think that some things that you get faced with, you're at a crossroads of, am I going to face this and, growth from certain things, or am I going to just go, that's not for me? Honestly, I think it's not for everybody. I think like sort of evolving, I think
it's
and growing.
Really hard. I think it's really, really hard.
Are we talking about honesty still?
I was talking about growth.
No. What I mean as a whole, like, is just in terms of like, I think that part of life of being sort of the ideal version of you, which is, conscientious. I'm not going to try to say that word. Conscientious? Is that the word?
That's right.
I don't know what that bloody means.
But that word.
Conscientious, isn't that like someone that,
I don't know. All I know is
drives your car around like that, or like
concierge. I was going to say that's a chauffeur.
No, you're right. Concierge. That's it.
Concierge works at a hotel.
Yeah.
But they
drive you around though.
No, but in America they do, don't they?
They take your car and park
take
it.
your car.
Valley.
Oh yeah, what's a concierge?
A concierge is the person that works at the desk. Well, you used
to
be
a hotel.
Of a hotel.
And the chauffeur.
Right, anyway,
All right. Calm yourself. Come on. We all make mistakes.
Yeah, if you want to be a decent version of yourself, to be like, trustworthy, honest, this, that, and the other. I don't think that is for everybody, because I think it's, for the most part, I think life is hard enough without trying to sort of having to sort of try and battle your demons to try and get to a point where you're like, okay. And I think that's like in one of my episodes, I talked about sort of how, like, whoever you think you are, that's going to get tested when you have kids. I think when you're responsible for somebody, not even when you have kids, when you're responsible for somebody, whether if you're a manager at work, like, you're going to really find out whether or not I am this person who I think I am. And I think like I said, I don't think those tough journeys are for everybody. I think some people I think it's in them to just sort of be just the basic version of themselves. I think some people, if you put that kind of pressure on them, I think they'll crumble. I think for the most part, they're fine. I think these are the people that they're okay with being in conditional relationships. In fact, I think on some level they prefer them. I think it's not even that. I think a lot of people prefer it because it's so much easier because you have to really confront so many things. Yeah, like some people, like you, like we've met people that you met people that are like that will have a get with somebody who basically doesn't have a mind of their own, who just wants to be told, do this, do this, do that, do this, and so there's people that will look for someone who tell them what to do. And there are people that will look for someone who can tell. You know what I mean? So I think for the most part, I think there's some people who want to they want the safety net because it's easier. And for the most part, it is, like I said, life is hard enough. So I think the easy option for some people is a bit more appealing. And, as you said yourself, it's an element that I guess you've had to kind of decide for you, have this conversation with yourself in a sense of, do I continue being myself and potentially just stay alone for the rest of the time and sort of enjoy my own company? Or do I sacrifice a bit of who I am for a relationship and that companionship? And it is that case of, I think, if you're somebody who hasn't got to the point where you're okay with being by yourself, forever. Mm-hmm. I think for some people, because there's that term that, human beings are gregarious creatures. Like if someone woke up and they're by themselves, the first thing they try and do subconsciously try and find somebody else, and then they try and find another person. It's that thing of, can you get to a point where you're like, I'm actually fine to be by myself.
I think that's one thing that's like winning. I think I've said to Sam though, when we've had some of these conversations before, like, I feel like you've kind of got it and you've got it down. I think when you get to the mindset that you're in, I think you're winning, because I think that if you can just do life by yourself as a whole and be content and happy with your own company, doing things that make you happy, and you go on that journey, if anyone then comes into it, that's just an added bonus. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's just a blessing.
I think I started talking and now I lost my train of thought.
I'm glad I'm not the only person on this podcast this time.
No, I've done that car a lot of time. I just waffled.
Like you say that, like I think I've got a thought, but it just won't articulate.
I know, I hate that.
Do you know what I mean?
That happens to me a lot.
That happened to me yesterday. I was trying to say.
I think that, and this is no disrespect to people that have chosen to be in relationships and things like that, but I think relationships are something that is very much a pressure from society. Like, you, generally speaking, you feel like you have to be with someone. There's that whole, you get married, you have kids. Do you know what I mean? That's very pressured. Whereas I guess it kind of comes a little bit of being gay. Yeah. You're not the norm anyway, so I don't feel those pressures.
Right, I see, yeah.
And I'm perfectly okay with that. I don't. Well, I've had relationships. They don't work. Partly me, partly them. Yeah. I'm never going to change who I am.
I know what you mean, actually.
I'm perfectly happy with who I am as a person.
Yeah, because I think you're right, because I think there is.
And I don't feel that pressure.
Yeah, because I think especially that part about saying, I think there is some element that, relationships they are somewhat of a social sort of.
I would just like to say, darling, don't want to be like nitpicky, but you're on a podcast and you're right near a microphone. It's probably going to get a little bit annoying. Pretty quick. I know what you're like. You're just going to keep doing that.
No. I really interrupted.
It is though, like, not. I digress, but if this whole planet was wiped out, you start afresh, no history, nothing. Like, it's not natural, in my opinion. Obviously, opinions are different. It wouldn't be natural for you to seek out a relationship. Like,
to be like, I'm
do
gonna.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not something that.
I
it's
think,
something that it's a pressure that people have put on us.
It's an ingrained thing in society.
Decades and decades.
Yeah. It's like when people.
You have to have one. So then, of course, you do then naturally wake up feeling like, oh, okay, I need to get her in a relationship. I need this. But actually,
because
wipe
I think
wipe your memory, wipe your fresh. You probably wouldn't feel that way.
Well, you're all right, because sometimes I've heard people talk about relationships as though it's like some life achievement. They'll say something like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I've got a partner now." And the other person go, "Oh, really?" And you're just like, what's happening? And it's a weird thing. There's nothing about, oh, I've learned this skill or that skill, I'm doing this now. It's just a case of, and then it's kind of like goes up levels. They'll be like, oh yeah, we had kids. Oh right, and you got married. And it's like this weird thing where it's like, I'll say this. I think there's some people who I don't think they have anything else going in life. Not that that's a bad thing. I don't think, like I said, not everybody's going to be Bill Gates or whoever. But I think they haven't got comfortable with that fact of, I'm just here to sort of just enjoy my time and whatever. That I think that they're like, I need to have something to say when my friends and family ask me what I'm doing in my life. Yeah. So I'm gonna go and get with somebody, have kids.
Well, it's like so many women feel pressured to even have babies.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's so sad.
That's for another podcast.
Yeah. but again, like you say, it's society's pressures.
Because obviously, you don't see say you weren't together and you didn't have kids.
Yeah.
And you were this age.
Yeah.
You bet your damn ass that the first thing they would say to you is, "Oh, have you met anyone? Oh, have you know?"
And then that will be the whole topic of the year.
It's just like, or if you have met somebody and you're in that relationship, and then they're like, "When are you going to have kids? When are you going to have kids?"
Yeah.
And then when a woman says, I so respect it when a woman turns around and says, "I don't want kids," I'm like, well, power to it. Because you've got to think to yourself, how many people end up having kids when they don't actually want to?
That's
and then who suffers?
They all suffer. I'm a guy. Even when I was younger, you'd say you don't want kids.
Mm-hmm.
Your family would be like, "Oh, you'll change your mind when you're older."
Yeah.
I've not had one fleck of change.
Yeah.
Nah.
But I think it is that thing where I think the other thing about relationships are, like, when you think about, they're like they're kind of like social constructs now. It's not just that, you're in a relationship with that person. There's the other politics that you're not just in a relationship with them, you're in a relationship with their family members as well. Because now you get this thing where you've got this person that you're involved with.
It's like the family can have an opinion on who you're going to be with and what your life's going to look like. It's crazy.
Which is weird, because there's an element of like, you're with this person, like, so I'm with this person, fair enough. Then there's the other person that's attached to them. Mm-hmm. Really, there's nothing, there's no reason for us to really interact other than, "Hi, how you doing? Blah, 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 blah."
Mm-hmm. I'll remember that. Cool, yeah.
No, but like, in the sense of like, it's not necessary that outside, like, if you let's say one of your siblings is with somebody and you feel like that person's a danger, that's the exception.
Yeah,
if you feel like this person, you know what, you being around my sibling, you're going to be a physical danger to their health, I need to get involved. That's fair enough. But a simple case of, I'm with this person, I don't know, this person decides to say they're vegetarian, and you're like, well, we're all meat eaters here, mate. If you come round to dinner, we're not cooking you. Like, that will be enough to spoil a Sunday dinner or whatever it is. That will be enough for it to be a big deal.
But we had this chat, didn't we, once with your family members, with just that kind of the politics of, what a parent might want or what a tradition is, but then what you might not, you might not be on board with that tradition, or you might not want to. Like, we had that discussion about doing the Ugandan style wedding.
Yeah, and for the most part, it was a case of like, I mean, it wasn't even that like, one, we had a very limited budget, and there was an element of, as far as trying to find out whether or not we were committed to one another, that was a foregone conclusion. And I said, had we got married 2 years in, maybe it might have been a bit different, because of course, when we were together 2 years in, we weren't even aware of
Well,
what
I think
actual,
we were just different people.
Yeah, and I think at that point we might have tried to we might have behaved a bit differently to try and prove to everybody else that, we really do love it, So I might have said, let's go do the, but
there was a lot. But to be fair, there was a lot of time. There was a lot of years that I felt we needed to prove ourselves to many different people. To be honest,
and the thing is, you do that, and I think when we actually did get married, it was like, and this is the thing. I think when we actually did get married, by that point, it was one, two of the very reasons that are two of the very, sort of living metaphors of our commitment are our children. There's a case of, if anybody ever needs to, question whether or not, just you just watch them interacting, and you know that, as far as commitment and love, you can see that within the way our children behave around us and even within themselves. There was a case of, and I remember when I spoke to my mum, and to be honest, give my mum her dues, she never tried to she didn't even approach the subject with me, because I think she was just kind of a case of, okay, right, you're getting married. And that was it.
I found it quite warming, to be fair, because I never felt like I was never accepted.
Yeah, and
I felt like it was like I was expecting to be, not accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like
I'm sure you felt the opposite of that.
And this is the thing.
This is what I mean. It's so strange, isn't it? Because I genuinely thought I wasn't going to get accepted.
It was a weird thing, because I remember
there was never even a question of it.
I remember thinking to myself, even when it was when it came to meeting you, it was one of the things, and I've always felt, I think I've always kind of underlined felt this in any situation. I've always felt myself like, I don't want everyone to come across rude, but I never really kind of, pardon my French, never really gave a shit, because I thought to myself, the only thing that matters is how me and you feel about one another. And as respectful as I want to be, I can remember I had the same thought when I went to sort of do the whole thing and came to your dad, look, I'm going to blah, blah, blah. I remember there's an element that I was like,
yeah, because if he said, I'm not going to allow you
because
to
the truth is, if you turn around and said to me, nah, mate, I'd be like, that's like a
Can you
problem.
imagine? Can you imagine, though, if somebody did go and ask for a hand in marriage, and then that person went no, and then you then go and, you propose to your fiance, and you then say, oh, by the way, your dad didn't give me the blessing. Can you just imagine? The person that you were going to, well, I certainly would be like, well, this is going to be a shock for everybody, because I would be like, I'd find that utterly...
And it's the thing, for the most part, there's an element that, I mean, even like with my kids, there's an element like, if Eden decides to get married or whatever it is, I think there's an element that if whoever she got with had to come and ask me, I don't know, but I'd probably think, what do you care if I think, mate? Like, ask her. Like, you're asking the wrong person, because whether I like you or not.
Again, though, I think those are just built-in traditions, aren't they?
I think that's a weird tradition.
It's very weird. Like, okay, I like you, but I'm going to go ask this person, probably doesn't like me.
Is your father, but doesn't actually own you. So if you would like to get married to me, it's damn well your choice.
In some cultures as well, it's like you have to pay. And so it just blows my mind with things.
I've had this conversation with my friends. Like when
you've told me about some of your friends that have had to do that, bless them.
Like, I remember my friend was telling me that when his cousin went to get married, he had to go to the family, and basically it was just like this weird like negotiation meeting. It wasn't weird. To me it's weird anyway, but it's not disrespecting anyone's culture. But it was like, when he was describing it to me, I'm like, I sound like you're buying somebody. And I feel like, but again, it was weird, because to me, I'm like, if I've got to pay money, I'm going to treat it as that. So if I'm basically buying somebody, then I can't fully all the way respect you in a way, because I've spent money and you've put a price on who you are as a person, and we've gone and negotiated that price, and we've haggled. I feel like anything I've haggled for, if I've come to a person, I can't. If we have an argument at one point, I'm going to be like, what do you think?
I paid for you.
I think I lived with a bit of a discount.
I paid £2.50 for you. You best stop behaving.
But my thing is, my friend
I'm going to go get some refunds.
The thing is, my friend said to me, like, no, but there's an element that if you do have an argument, you tell her family, they send her back, and then they'll go and have a chat with her, and then when she comes back, problem solved. Do you know what I mean? But it was like, to me, I was like, look, if I do that suggests that I'm not looking for somebody who sort of, who I want to be able to exchange. It is different.
Yeah, and again, like you say, there's so many different.
You're going to give me some kids. You're going to have put my dinner on thingy. and you're not going to give me no grief, and that's what we're going to do. And I think for the most part, I think if that, again, I
think some people that works for, and some people they're okay with that. Yeah.
But I feel like for me, I feel like there was never, I could have never like, I couldn't, if there's any, but again, I feel like I don't think there's any point in sort of blurring any lines. I call a spade a spade. If I have to pay money to marry you, then you're technically property. And I don't think people are property. So I feel like if you said to me how much I'll be like, I'm not going to pay anything, because I feel like if I do, then we'll go outside the realms of, well, you know, what are your feelings? Because if I've paid, like, if I paid money, then if, like, do you know what I mean? Because the truth is, there's going to be some things that you generally feel quite strongly about that I'm not going to care about, and vice versa. There's going to be things that I feel strongly about that, not to be like rude, but I don't care about that because it's not you. And I think when you put money involved in that, especially the way sort of money has such a sort of a hold on our society.
Money's crippling on so many relationships.
It's just, do you know what I mean? It's going to be a case of, I don't know. I feel like at that point you're going to muddy the waters. Like I said, I don't think you can have, you know, I can't demand respect as a person, and also as well as, do you know what I mean? Money. Mm-hmm. I feel like I don't think you can have those two things. I think they contradict one another because it's a case of if your respect is only up into a certain price, then, do you know what I mean? It's just to the highest bidder. But yeah, I think, but as you said, if it works for, like, crack on, do that. But yeah.
I think then it is just about knowing what your boundaries are and what what you want from a situation, isn't it?
And that's what I'm going to.
You can link it back to that.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. It is a case of, like, as a whole, what is it you're looking for? And I think even for me, when I think about, like, you know, when we've had a sort of rough time, I thought to myself, you know, I don't know if we'll make it or not, and I generally sort of have a realistic idea of what life will actually be like, not what I think it's going to be, but in reality, when you start putting in the kids and this and any other, or, you know, potentially other relationships or this, that, and the third, and I really try to think about things to myself. When I ask myself, you know, what do I want, or what do I want to feel like? I thought to myself, you know, I want to feel like at the very least I tried my best, and whatever it was I wasn't willing to sacrifice, that then potentially ended the relationship. It was something that was worth, like, I was gonna, like, in my loneliest times, I'm still gonna be like, you know what, I'm fine. But I think if there was, like, and again, I think when I think of, but again, I think with that, I think because I can be honest with myself, there is in the decision making, there is no ego, which is one of the reasons why we've kind of been able to sort of keep it going, because for the most part, I think either one of us are trying to put in, like, sort of trying to sort of, I don't know, we're not trying to hold on to our happiness, because I think for the most part we understand it's even if me and you are having a great day and we're having, it's an amazing whatever it is, you know, if something goes wrong, one of the kids, if they're ill, whatever it is, that's gonna, do you know what I mean? So I think for the most part, all we can try and do is, one, we not understand that they are the priority, which they let us know. We even said on our wedding night, it was a case of, oof, thank God, because they were just fine. But we knew
so good,
at any point, if one of them just had the whole, literally, the bride and the groom would have been at home reading the bedtime story, because that would have been it. Because you know what I mean? Because if we had carried on and said, we wouldn't have enjoyed the night, because the whole time would have been,
oh yeah, I can't.
Right, I did this, I did that.
Yeah.
So it was a case of, and I think that was, and I remember I thought to myself when we were planning it, and, you know, and I remember we had the conversation, and I was saying, you know, let's try and make it as simple as possible, as small variables as possible. But I remember I had one moment, I was like, you know what, if these kids could just, if they wanted to, they can just shut this whole thing down.
Yeah.
And again, it was a case of, you know, we won't love them any less. But I think it was a, and the fact that the night did go really well, luckily, and we were both like, oh, thank God. It was just a case of, it was really a reminder of what relationships are really about. It's like in the long run rather than at the beginning. Because I think when you're at the beginning, before you actually really start, you know, you start finding out whether or not actually you do like each other, or you are committed to each other. You're kind of just messing about. But later on, and that's why I say, you know, 10 years is kind of a bit of a blip. Later on, when all these things like chemistry and attractiveness, all of those things, when they no longer matter anymore, and it is a case of, okay, can I actually depend on you? Can I rely on you? and if push comes to shove, are we kind of gonna try and are we both sort of committed to a point where we're gonna try and make it work? I think at that I've gonna lost my point.
You can't say all that and then lose your point.
Literally, I don't know. It's
the audacity.
I feel like I lost it when I started thinking of the
when you started speaking.
The point is, this is what I'm saying is, if you have kids, say goodbye to your happiness. I feel like if you don't have people don't have kids and they carry on, focus on your happiness, and if that person making you happy, fuck them off. But I think if you have kids, just sack that shit off. And I think
I disagree.
I completely disagree with that.
Yeah, I just don't think you're gonna get it because
the thing
is, your kid might be the thing is, if you're like one
sec, I really need a wee.
Yeah.
Can I run for a wee and then you just cut that out?
Yeah.
No, do not cut it out. Are you gonna piss yourself? Oh, you could have waited then, couldn't you? Oh, I should have done that. Oh, I should have done that by the microphone. This is in no way sponsored.
What the fuck was that?
Right. Nice cold Coca-Cola.
It was that Santa Claus bit. Oh, it's Coca-Cola. I'll give him this. The like. Again, I don't know what it is. It being out of a glass bottle.
It just tastes.
In my head,
better.
it tastes different.
It just
I
tastes
genuinely
better.
like if you like. I think the one I hate the most is the plastic bottle.
Oh,
Makes me sick.
Nah.
Disgusting. I tolerate the cans.
I taste like out of the can. I don't know. I wouldn't describe it as.
Yeah.
I wouldn't describe it as metallic-y, but
it's just
yeah,
not favourable.
We've decided to change the podcast into a ASMR.
What's that?
You don't know what ASMR is?
No. What's
you know
that?
Like people like
ASMR.
whisper into the microphone and things like that.
ASMR.
And we're like, hang on.
Is that like a sexy thing? Is that like trying to get people aroused?
No.
I feel like that's what you all do.
It's not.
No? What's it called then? Explain it to me. I never heard of it.
I don't know what. I wouldn't be able to explain it. People make a freaking career out of it, let me tell you that. Like,
Just by whispering what they're saying?
not necessarily whispering, they could just be like,
It's definitely a sexual thing.
excuse me, I watch these videos and it's not a sexual thing. It's very relaxing. It's like it's very relaxing.
Something in the brain.
Some sounds that are just.
Have you tried it, darling? Because I don't know whether you do very well at whispering. Too much pressure.
What was I saying? Yeah, no.
Oh, you lost your thing.
I remember now. No, because I was saying, yeah, I think again, unless, as you said, unless you're both exactly the same. Like, if you got a kid, there's an element that.
Oh yeah, that's it. Because we said we disagree.
Yeah, I feel like there's an element that.
Oh yeah, about happiness. Oh yeah, what the fuck?
No,
I don't agree in that.
Let me just get my point across. I think it's respectable, and obviously people's choices are people's choices. So, like you said, your relationship not solely about the kids, but 90% about the kids. Whereas I guess I don't see kids. I don't like kids. Do you know what I mean?
Sorry, when you say the relationship is 90% the kids, I don't know what's going on here. Maybe you need to fill me in.
I plucked that out of the air. But what I mean is,
I was just asking about me agreeing with it.
you live for the kids.
Yeah, there's no.
Yeah, but I don't think I.
No, not the reason why you stay together.
Right.
I'm saying that in terms of what you like. For example, most of everything we do,
Yeah,
is what about the kids?
Around the kids. Yeah,
Even this, what about the kids? Do you know what I mean? So
but I don't think that means that you can't be happy.
No, I didn't say you can't be happy.
What he said.
But I'm saying, no, what I said was, because remember,
you're not focused. You're not focused on your happiness.
Yeah,
right.
That's what
I'm with you.
If you don't have kids and you've been together for this long. If that person isn't making you happy, bin them up. Yeah. Because there's an element that
what else is there?
So if you don't have kids and they're not making you happy, get rid of them.
Yeah.
And you don't plan to have kids.
Get rid of the kids.
No. Yeah, that's it. No, if you're not planning to have children and you're not going down the route, but this person isn't making you happy, then by all means,
sorry. I'm so sorry.
But get rid of that person. But if you have kids, then you have to put aside the fact that this person isn't making you happy, or the fact that you're not happy.
Oh, see,
because for the most part,
there's no way I couldn't be with you. I'm sorry, the kids wouldn't be enough.
No, but what I'm saying is that you can't.
I don't think the kids could be enough. The kids could be enough in that.
No.
He's not saying. So what he's saying is, let me simplify it for you.
Go for it.
You're not happy with Phil 24/7, are you?
Oh, good grief, no.
Right. Okay. And 90% of the time, your brain is focused on the children.
Yeah.
I.e., tonight, children, but we have to wait for the children to be in bed. Blah,
yeah.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
That's what he's saying. So your sole focus
isn't him.
Isn't making each other happy.
Yeah. Because even if, let's say...
No, but I think that's... What you've just worded sounds totally different to what you're saying.
But is that what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Because for
example, you piggyback on that, mate.
Let's say this, yeah. Okay, let's say one of the things that made you happy was that, I don't know, I surprised you with, I don't know, flowers.
What's never happened? What did you say? Cunnilingus.
Sorry. Guys, it's getting later. We're tired. It's going to turn into a shit show. Right?
No, let's say something made you happy. Was, I don't know,
cunnilingus.
I'll give you a massage every Friday.
No, because your massages are never what I want. They've centered around what you want. That's a massage for you.
It's a massage with a happy ending.
For him. Yeah. I want a relaxing situation. Never.
No, but listen, okay, whatever it was, I can't say what makes you happy. I can't say it. Whatever it is, okay, give us an example makes you happy. Say something.
From you?
Just anything. Ideally,
a clean house. I like a clean house. I love a clean house.
So let's say that.
Oh, right. I was going to say that's not centered around you, but you just meant general, something that makes you happy.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah, so let's say that you love
a clean house. As you can tell, her life is very fulfilling.
so let's say I was like, okay.
It's because I live in such mess all the time with these kids.
So let's say I was going to make a point of, okay, house is going to be spotless every time you come back.
Oh, I'd be so happy.
Right. Eventually.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good.
That's not going to happen because you might come back one day and both of them might shat themselves. And on top of that, someone's going to come at the door and you might come in and I'm knee deep in shit. So at some point, you're going to come back and not be happy because instead of having clean, there's shit.
Well, no, because if you're a reasonable person, you'd just be like, well, obviously,
but that's the part
he's been knee deep in shit.
Okay, right. So imagine that happens once and it happens every week.
Well, if it happens every week, I'll be like, you're orchestrating these kids to shit themselves.
You're feeding them laxatives. That is not acceptable.
You're creating.
I'm calling the RSPCA.
I would actually shut your operation down and say, I don't think you should be on your own with these kids.
Let's say for people who had twins or triplets.
Oh man, that's savage.
For at least 6 months, you're gonna have a situation where you're like, I think.
Honestly, I commend people that have twins and stuff. I think they're absolutely incredible people.
Where at any given moment, there was a used nappy in a bag on the landing.
Oh yeah,
all the time. Or it was just a smell of wet wipes. At that point, there's no way we're keeping the house clean in terms of having guests around. So
no, because if I have guests around, I'd step up my game.
Right, but so therefore
we just didn't have guests around.
We didn't. That's 100%.
That's what I mean.
But I'm not a hostess for the mostest, mate.
At that point, that part of what makes you happy has to be sacrificed because it's not.
Yeah. No, I understand. I understand that.
So what I'm saying is that, but if you're, so that's what I mean when I say that. But
I think
happiness can't be the priority if you have children.
No, I don't think. But I think that there has to be an element of priority to maintain the relationship. Because if you don't put that level of priority,
effort has to be the priority, not happiness. The effort.
Oh yeah.
So that's what I mean. But
effort hopefully would lead on to making the other person feel because elements of happiness, right?
Because they can see that you made an effort, but the finished product that they want that will make them happy, they're not going to get. And if they never get that because you have kids, there's an element you kind of have to be okay with that, because even though I'm not able to give you what you want.
Oh, you're linking this onto.
I've made the effort.
I know what you're linking this onto.
I've made the effort to try and do that. But if you don't have kids and you're never going to have kids, fuck you and your effort. Do the fucking thing. But what I'm saying,
I'm going to kick you in the bollocks.
If you're with somebody and you, like I say, if you decided, we're not going to have kids, whatever it is, or maybe you're a gay couple, whatever it is, and kids are not, a factor in the equation, then at that point, happiness can be the priority, because at that point it's just
it's centered around the two of you.
Yeah, because everything is now, it is still just about you two.
Yeah.
But if you have children, I'm not saying that you can never be happy, but I don't think that should be the priority, because even if you try to at your best, you're not gonna get that. And for the most part, even if we've had it before, even now we don't even plan anything. We just okay, because we know that the kids can just. Do you know what I mean? We've got 6 weeks on holiday. Me and you haven't planned to do nothing, because we know that there is no sure thing. We have to wait and see how the day goes, and then it might be all right. Do you know what I mean? So it's an element of it's out of your hands. You can only kind of try and go for, you know what? I want to just let you know that I'm in the midst of this. I'm trying. I'm gonna try.
I think I agree with what you're saying. Effort and try.
We're gonna be happy, but it will be lucky. I don't think it's a given. However, if you don't have kids, then there's very little excuse, other than there's excuse for one time, but for the most part, then I think at that point, if that person isn't making you happy, then bin them off and tell them you're not making me happy. But I think if you have kids, get rid of that happiness shit, because it's just I think it's just not gonna. I'm not saying it can never happen.
It's so good to have these podcasts. It's so telling about once.
But I don't think it should be the priority. And I think, to be honest, I think when women have kids anyway, I think that guy it gets shunted to the side a little bit anyway, because I think even if she wanted to, there's an element of the kids are always going to take sort of precedence. They have to. Mm-hmm. Unless, of course...
Yeah.
Unless, of course, the guy's some giant man-child, but I think, me personally, I think, like I said, if you have to kind of just put that to the side and take your moments where you can, but I don't think it should be the priority. I think in fact, I think a lot of relationships, I think that's where the biggest struggle. I think they have kids and they're trying to sort of maintain the same, they're trying to do the same thing they used to do before, and that's usually what ends up.
I think it's all I really do just think it all just links to communication, because I think you should be able to communicate all of that to each other, to know that it's not that one doesn't want to make effort or try or wants to make you happy. It's just a case of circumstantially, it's just not as easy.
True. I think also sometimes it's a case of just you should be able to see that. I think yes and no. I think some people. If you have to say to somebody, I can't do our date night because I've been up half the night with the kid, then you have a bigger problem than just communication. That person's an idiot.
Is that a pointed comment?
No. I've seen situations. Since we had children, and I've talked to other couples that have kids in there, and I've spoken. Usually, I'm speaking to another guy, the dad, and he's telling me about a situation. And I remember I was doing labour with one guy who was so proud that he had never changed a nappy. His kid was 4. He's like, I've never changed a nappy in my life, mate. But he was so...
Again, I would bin you right off.
but he was so He was so confused as to why his missus never wants to do anything.
Right, yeah.
But in the same day, he's told me he's never changed a nappy. He goes
she'd be
fishing
exhausted.
from about 5 in the morning to about 9.
I have no time for...
6:30 at night.
I have no time for...
His missus never wants to do anything, sexually. And I remember all I could do is... Oh, blimey, mate, it must be a tough life. Because I can't have a conversation because you're clearly an idiot.
So his honesty, you put that on the back burner.
I'm just going to call you an idiot, and we have got work to do. So let's just do the job here, because I think, you know what I mean. For the most part, you're clearly an idiot.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? So
I think people that continue having loads and loads of hobbies when they have children is ridiculous.
There you go. Yes, if you had hobbies.
it's so weird to me, these kind of conversations, because
you're like, I've never given you that shit.
I wouldn't. I honestly, it's one of those things, like, I can't physically understand the fascination. Like, I just...
But...
The thought of putting a child's happiness before mine...
But look at it like this, yeah?
Is just absolutely diabolical.
But listen, you've had Blue for 1 week.
Yeah.
And you've sacrificed your happiness.
Yeah, Blue's a dog.
And your time. And you have centered a lot of your week around making
there's your week and there's your
the
life.
dog.
Yeah.
No, of course. No. Sorry, I'm trying to get him to put the perspective of that's what it would be like on a gargantuan level. But then I don't think anybody realises the actual magnitude of having children, because the reality.
Decided.
Yeah, no, I think
that not for me.
Yeah, and I think that you did the wise thing.
I digress. Back to my point is, if you've got hobbies, I do not think that children should be a reason or an excuse not to continue with those.
I will say this: there's an element that
obviously you've got less time, but
I do agree with you. I don't think kids should get all of you. No. I don't think they should be able to take every single part of you.
Absolutely.
But again, I go back to what you say,
because when your kids get to 18 and leave,
then what's left? Yeah, and I think it's
I don't think you should. I don't think you should abort everything. But I think that we have to be realistic. That to be a parent, you have to be selfless. You just can't be selfish.
And
I think that you've got to think, I've always said this to you, if we had a hobby situation where you still had a hobby and I had a hobby, we would then have to work that into our week and then also work in time for ourselves and for the children. There's a lot of factors within that when you work 80% of the time.
That's what I was going to say. This is where what you said about communication comes into it, because I think you're right. You would have to it would have to become a scheduled hobby in the sense of, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I think...
I've said to you, if we did that, we'd have to have basically 1 week on, 1 week off, as in the sense of one weekend you get to do your hobby, the next weekend I'd get to do my hobby, then the following weekend we get to have family time. You'd have to factor all of those things in.
And I think that would, realistically, for that to happen, you'd have to have the perfect relationship in terms of communication, understanding, all of that, which is just not likely in today's society. Well, I think in any society, to be honest. But at the same time, I think there's been times, like even me, like I remember when I sort of, especially when Franklin was very young, I had moments I was like, is this, like I remember there was like 2 weeks, but I didn't even go into the gym. There was just we barely got any sleep. I remember asking myself, is this like, is this
the choice I've made?
Yeah. You do have a lot of, and I think as well as a parent that you shouldn't feel guilty for that, because there's going to be so many moments where you literally question, and this is really hard, like it's the hardest job I have ever done in my life. Relentless. Yeah. So amazing, but at the same time, so hard. And I think that a lot of people as well don't.
Some jobs a bit harder.
Huh?
I said some jobs a bit harder.
Some jobs are a bit harder than being a parent.
The dish thing, what do you call it?
I think.
Are you alright, mate?
No, I just said that.
You're fishing for a fight, mate. I think you're fishing. You're fishing for
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, literally. Are you okay? No, I call bullshit anyway, because we've had this conversation another time, and you've even said, you've always said to me that you being at home with the kids is harder than. So
harder than my job, because that's easier. That's because the job.
Okay, well, I'm not saying if you're a brain surgeon. I'm just saying. Of course, there are really, really hard jobs. I'm okay. Hardest job I've ever done, and hardest job you've ever done.
No, to be fair, I don't disagree. I think
it's a job that you never switch off from. So that's what I mean by it's the hardest job, because you don't clock in and clock out. You'll never, like even us, we've not been on a honeymoon yet. But if we went on a honeymoon, that whole week or whatever, wherever our kids were, we would then be in a situation where I'll never fully switch off. I will never ever sleep the same. I will never ever shit the same. I will never ever shower the same. I will never ever do anything the same.
Every now and then, when I go to it, even though I have to open the door and go, "You both alright?" And then sometimes I don't hear nothing, I'll be like, "Oh shit, are you both alright?" And the third time, I'm like, I'm gonna have to get off that wife and Jesus, mid shit. I was like, yeah. I was like, you fucking little pricks. But,
no. So
yeah.
Honestly, that's what I mean by it's the hardest job because you just never stop from it. Like we've said, like you just don't know these things before.
To be honest, like,
you just don't understand the magnitude.
Funny, yeah? Even with like having kids, Laura like half mentioned the other day that maybe I'll go and let Blue out, and immediately I even gave it. In fact, I think I just looked down on the floor because I was like, in my head, I'm not. The anxiety that came around me going to engage that dog, I was just like, no.
No, but then I just cared too much for Blue, and I thought I ain't putting him in any level of anxiety.
I didn't even give the inkling that I was gonna. I was like, because I think she went.
To be
there.
fair, she did say before this week she did offer you, and I thought to myself.
The thing is, like, she what happened was I think you went and you didn't go for the toilet. So then you was like,
I was just worried about him. So
I was like, that dog's gonna shit in the house. That's what's gonna happen. Like, you're gonna come with a turd.
I'm not gonna lie. All week I've been so scared because I'm laughing about sick. I've been like so scared I'm gonna go and then he's gonna like spewed up all over. And I was thinking, I have done it once in my life.
Actually, honestly, he did not. So the first time he knew, he removed himself to the kitchen, which doesn't have a carpet. Like he wasn't.
Oh my god! Really?
He knows what to do.
Like
every time he'd like want to go outside. Yeah, he's a very clever dog.
Oh my gosh! Anyway, bless his heart.
Very stressful. We digress again. Cut this whole thing out.
Because I would definitely have left it. I'm not going to lie to you. I would have had to message you and say, I'm really sorry, Sam, but there's sick somewhere. I can't be dealing with that. Of picking up his shit twice. He is lucky that happened.
Picked it up? Oh, yeah,
I picked up both, yeah. But I was really, that's one thing. It just took me a lot. Took some Dutch coverage.
You should have just buried it in your garden, do you know what I mean?
Like some other little fucker, yeah. I thought I can't be a hypocrite.
Why are we on Blue? You're going to have to cut this out.
I don't even know why we were on Blue.
No, I was saying that even though we had kids, when the
you went on to the anxiety thing.
Responsibility for about an hour.
So was there another question you had? You said there was two, was there?
Oh.
Was there two, or was it just that question?
Did you not write your questions down?
I did think about writing them down, man. I thought.
And then you didn't, and now look here.
Yeah. But I don't think.
Classic.
I think we did.
I feel like you asked one question at the start,
and then but I knew that
we're not sharp.
Essentially, it was one question that I knew would digress onto other things, which we have done, which is I think we've got really good content. Hour and a half.
Hour and a half. Wow.
But I'm trying to think. Did we round off?
I would just like to say you shouldn't.
Episode 5.
Bring in your questions, guys. We'll answer them.
I think it's I'll tell you what. Let's do final thoughts. About any final thoughts about conditional relationships?
Absolutely, don't come to me first. I don't have thoughts.
Like I said, me personally,
she doesn't have thoughts. She's a robot.
She's
AI.
Me personally, I think just sort of address the elephant in the room. You don't have to change, but just like I feel like people should just you know what because and I say that because I give very like simple examples of like I don't know we eat what I like, but there's some extreme examples like some people are like you know what. I'm gonna go and sleep.
I think it's really important. People should just know they should really delve within themselves to know what they want, and then know that they're not going to sacrifice certain things within themselves to accommodate somebody else's ways,
or if they're willing to. Or I think if you are willing to sacrifice, if you're like you know what, this is who I am, but if you put it on me and say if you don't do this, then good day. And you are willing to sacrifice that, then I think be honest about it. I'm not saying I'm not saying.
But again, though, I feel like if you went down that train, I think that person's going to latch on. That's it. That track. That person's going to latch onto it, and that's just going to basically set a precedence for your whole relationship. And they're going to rerunning with that. They're going to be like, oh, this person sacrificed themselves in this element, so I could then.
But that's what I mean.
Get more.
That's what I mean when I say I don't think that whole journey of strength is for everybody. I think some people are like, yeah, just tell me what to do. And I think, like, and like I gave an example like that guy. I don't even know him. His name's Adam 22. We had the whole situation where he let this other porn star guy bang his missus and they recorded and did the whole scene. I think he's okay with it. I think the thing the thing that will annoy him is that the whole world knows about it, and they have a whole podcast on the show. Everywhere he goes now is, how do you feel about that? And I think that if it ever gets to him, I think it will be that. I think he himself is okay with it.
Yeah.
But I think, personally, I think the whole world knowing about it and sort of making it a joke, making it a meme, I think that is that's what's gonna sort of, if it does chip away at him, that will be it. Because I think even there's when I've met people, both guys and girls, where their partners that, not necessarily completely faithful, I think to some level they've got to a point where they're like, you know what, this doesn't actually bother me that much. I don't hold that much weight on sex, and I think
that's another podcast as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I feel like, I just think that I have no issue with people doing what they want to do and how they want to do it. I just think it's about communication and saying what it is you want to do. So
if Phil said to you, I know what the answer
is. Oh no, you know what my answer is, but I've already set my standards. I've already set my precedents of there's just no grey area on certain things, and I will make that very, very clear, because I will not fuck with that. I will not.
But that's what I mean when I say But the thing is, I think there are some people who are on the other side of that coin.
100%, and I've met many people that are nothing. Like, I've met people, I've had conversations with certain friends and stuff, and they would potentially be like, oh well, would you think of outside relationship and stuff? And I'm just like, I love how you just I'm not. Yeah, but again, I'm not a sharer. Get
yourself on that track to a point, ASAP.
Sam, I remember, it's so funny though, because you used to be if you're on that track now, mate, you were way off that track when we were younger, mate. I remember it well.
But that's what I mean. I think there's some people. I think if you spoke to, if you line up a group of people and you ask them, I think maybe only a third of them might be like, if they did feel. I
think in today's world, though, it's like, if you then think of what is it, monogamy. Like, you think of today's world and how it's not it's just not as much of a thing, is it? And I think I honestly feel like it's more
back to the society thing that we were talking about
and I absolutely,
monogamy is a very
old-fashioned,
I hate to use this word, but heteronormative thing.
Don't know what that is.
I don't know what that word means.
What is that word?
It's hard to explain, and I'm not intelligent.
I can get the gist.
I'm not very intelligent when it comes to these things, but obviously the whole world is based around it. Man, woman, heterosexuals, that's where it's from. Yeah. Monogamy, that is
just
it.
One person.
So people are realising monogamy is actually not that realistic.
No, and I think you're completely right.
You have cravings.
Yeah, and there's we all have desires, and we all have attraction. So I completely.
So that's why it's less.
I think if I was in a different circumstance, then maybe ones would think differently. But I've always been under, like, I'm not going to share him.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And I think that.
But I think that's why I would not. I think. Not to blame my parents, but because they've been together for such a long time.
Yeah.
And because in my mind, behind closed doors, it might not be, but they're very, very happy.
Yeah.
And they love each other a lot. So it's worked.
Yeah, absolutely.
Who knows? They could be at swingers. And do you know what I mean? I don't know the ins and outs.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, if they were, more power to them.
Yeah.
But that's part of the reason why I've got to the stage where I don't really care about finding a relationship, because I know that.
See, you were so different to that though when you were younger. See, I've not had this conversation with you.
I know that's so
I'm interesting.
A jealous person.
I'm so jealous.
So I wouldn't want to share.
Yeah, I can't. I'm pathetic.
Because I know that in my lifestyle that's unrealistic.
Yeah.
A relationship just wouldn't work.
And I
the way I would want it to work.
Yeah, and
that makes sense. So
that does make sense.
I like open relationships. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
If it works, it works.
Yeah. I'm one of these
kind of relationship. It
works. I think though it's about we've had this conversation. I think it's one of those things that once you've opened that door into that realm, we've obviously been in a relationship where it's just been the two of us for so long. If we then opened that door, it's what changes come from that, and would we then be able to be who we are and happy as we are now? Because these things would change you, because that is going into a very different environment and a different lifestyle, which isn't necessarily bad. It's just different to what we're used to. And I think that it's very, I know I'm a very jealous person, and I just don't share. So I just know that whole dynamics of it just doesn't make any sense to me. But I think if I got into a situation where you sat down, you set your cards on the table to begin with before you even got involved, and this is what the setup is, then I think it would be just slightly different, because my perception of it, whereas you've been mine for so long, it's like, that's it.
Yeah. I think if you met somebody, I think that, you're right. If you from the get-go said, look, this is blah, 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 then there is no...
See, I don't have an issue, and this is where I used to be really like, nah, but I do feel like I don't have any issue with it now. It's more just, as long as everybody's honest, it doesn't matter. I think as long as you go into it and you say, this is what I like and this is what I want to do, are you down, are you not down? I'm like, all power to you, and enjoy yourselves and have a good time. And there's nothing, because there's nothing wrong in that. It's only wrong when there's lies and deceit and like somebody's not aware of something, and then that person's getting taken on a ride and then potentially is going to get really, really hurt, and that breaks my heart. I just think that's awful. So I think it's them, I think it's more just, it's just honesty. And I think it's, again, about so many people understanding what they want sexually and what they feel will fulfill them. Because even hearing that from you is totally different from what it used to be when you were younger. But that's on your growth journey and where you've got to. You're like, no, actually, this would make so much more sense and actually would work better for me. But again, it's... You go on journeys, and I think even us, when you think sexually, like in 12 years, you change and you evolve and you learn more things, and you know. But I think there's so much stuff nowadays where people are really they have a lot of opinions, and there's a lot of, it's very difficult, isn't it? It's a very grey area.
If all parties involved are aware, and it's out in the open, then it's fine. I think again, it's just that thing of again, it was said quite a few times, probably an episode for another day, but I think it comes back down to that sort of that self-awareness of this is like being honest with yourself in terms of who you are, and then from that point making your decision based on that point. So if it's a case of, look,
okay, I know who I am as a person,
so I'm gonna go and do this
because I know it wouldn't logically in my lifestyle wouldn't work.
I'm not gonna
go for
Whereas
it.
I think some people don't have that conversation with themselves. They go with the social norm. And then they go,
and then they realise,
get a wife or husband, get married, have kids, and then later on they're like, oh wait, this part of me, I'm actually really into it. And then they just do this thing where they just kind of try and live this double life.
And I think people suppress so much of themselves. And I think that's the saddest thing. You should be able to be in a relationship where you can be so much of yourself. If you're able to be in a relationship where you're so much of yourself, you aren't having so much of that. You're feeling suppressed and kind of like you can't be true to yourself and what you actually feel is how you feel, I think.
And that's what I mean when I say, really, in relationships, the only really two things you need is reliability and honesty. Because, as I said, we could fall out about this, that, and the other, but if I can still rely on you and you can still be honest with me, then for the most part, you can kind of salvage especially if you do have kids. Because let's say if you do go down that route of, you get people that have gone down that route of where they've, kind of ignored a certain part of their life, but they're still, and then later on it kind of comes out that, okay, I am this person. And at that point you do have kids, and then, and there are bigger, there's
bigger things at stake.
At that point it's going to come down to, okay, this is who I am, and it's not going to work for this relationship. However, because we have children, I still need to be able to rely on you. Not that you can take care of me, but you can take care of these kids, and vice versa. And I need you to be honest with me in terms of what it is you're doing, because our children are going to be with you at some point. So I need you to, you know what I mean? So at that point, it's a case of do what you're doing, but I need you to be honest with me that, that the kids are safe, or they're here, or they're there, or that you can have them. And I need you to rely on you that should anything happen to me, you're going to be able to hold it. Do you know what I mean? So, and I think that's why I say, don't get me wrong, I don't think you would necessarily be the most happiest, but I think you're better off sort of, I don't know, man. I've heard like I've had conversations with people about problems they've had with their partners when they have kids, and I think to myself, these are conversations that you should never be having whilst you have kids. Like it seems like you're all playing very fast and loose, and you're both acting very, very childish at a point where you should both be like, okay, jokes aside, or whatever BS we have aside, what we're going to do about these kids. And they're still kind of on that train, and I feel like, I don't know, it's just a case of, I don't think it's a place where you want to be when you have people who are depending on you, who physically cannot, depend on themselves, children.
Yeah.
So I think again, it goes back to that, like I said, that having that self-awareness about yourself, and then making your decisions based from that, rather than, as you said, the social norms of, this is what I'm supposed to do, so let me go down that route. I think, as you said, people do, like, they suppress a lot of who they are, but hopefully they hear this podcast and then decide, just, don't get me wrong, I'm pretty sure a whole bunch of relationship will just crumble immediately. But as I said, I think sometimes,
I think everyone's got to remember, you only get one shot at life, and you don't want to kind of.
You only get one shot.
I don't know what the rest of the lyrics are.
Were you looking at me like, I don't know what the lyrics are?
Sorry, you're the songman. You do know. I know you do. I know you do.
But no, I think that is the case. I think.
But you do. You only get one shot, and you should be happy and content in your life. And I think so many people are not. And I think that I found our journey tough and hard, but I'm grateful that I'm in something where I can be reasonably fully myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's things that we don't necessarily agree on, and we're not completely the same.
But on the back of your thought there, you should also realise and accept that the fact that you aren't going to be happy all the time in life.
No.
Do you know what I mean? I think people...
But there's things...
You only get one shot, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So be happy. But I think a lot of people... they take that as the written rule. Like, you have to be happy. No.
Yeah, when they're not.
99% of the time, I am miserable as fuck. I don't remember the last time I was happy, but that's fine.
Yeah, but that is fine. But I feel like there's so many things in this world that dictate your happiness. Like, if something happens with health and stuff, that fucks up so many things. Yeah. So I feel like there's so much, especially since being an adult, I'm like, Jesus, man, this journey's tough. This is not all it cracked up to be, mate. But what I'm saying is, all of those things, there's always going to be so many things that are going to, like you say, dampen your time.
Yeah.
But in a relationship, there are going to be things that are going to dampen your time, because I'm not happy all the time. Of course I'm not. But I think that if you can be in something where you have an element of that purity and genuineness, that you can, I just think that shouldn't be an area where you're kind of having to, okay, I'll settle. Because then I think then what's happening is I don't know. I'm such a vocal person, and I suppose I'm probably too vocal, but I just can't live life like that, because I'm too honest. So that stresses me out. So I suppose because of that, I'd be just constantly, this, I'm not happy, I feel this way, or I'll probably just leave. But again, I think that it's lost it, mate. So I went on way too much, and it's gone. Got the gist, mate. Yeah. Well, you only get one shot.
I not get the gist.
Oh, fuck you, man. There was a gist, man. There was a gist.
For the cover, we just take a picture
of what?
No, just for the cover of the
pout and a thing. That's it. That's what you get from it.
Take it where we're sitting now. Just basically, so when I upload the episode, it will have like a.
You should just do a
selfie.
No, just do your logo.
No, what he's saying is he wants us.
No, I know what he's saying. I'm trying to digress from that.
I know. I'm just saying. He's probably not going to digress from that, and he's going to be like,
I'm going to screenshot.
He's like,
are you joking? Okay. Don't do that. That's a terrible idea. I feel like you can get rid now, and then you can try and take a selfie if you want.
Okay, I will round it off. I did say final thoughts earlier.
Oh, yeah, give your final thoughts.
We've got too much. Knock knock.
Who's there?
Oh no, I've done the wrong joke. Sorry.
What were you going for? What was the joke you
It
wanted?
wasn't a knock knock joke. I don't think.
Oh Jesus!
Actually, it was. I saw
was.
this on Instagram, so but I love it. I've told everyone at work it as well. So you said I'm not a joke personality, but I actually am.
Okay.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
Oh, see his flatmate or something. Oh yeah, but they say that, or is it their job? That's the head job.
To get to the idiot's house.
To get to the idiot's house.
Yeah. Knock knock.
I'm not going to say it. Because you're going to say, I'm going to say who's there, and you're going to be like, oh, you're the idiot. Because I crossed the road to get to the idiot. Oh, I feel so clever. I never get jokes. I never get nothing. I never get no jokes.
You're going to cut that whole joke out, but final thoughts.
Yeah, you need to give your final thoughts. I feel like we tapped in a bit. You're giving thoughts all day, left, right, and centre, and I feel like I give thoughts all day, left, right, and centre. It's you that hasn't had much airtime, babe. So
yeah, so I say people should be honest.
I'm the
people should be honest. What did I say?
Oh,
what was my thing?
Did you hear that? Right, they were saying, "Oh, give me my time," and then suddenly he said something. Don't swear again. This is the trio.
I'll ask you the question.
This isn't every Saturday, Sunday trio.
What you call it?
Right,
so okay. So we'll start with you, Sam.
Oh no! Don't ask me questions. I'm not good in test situations. No, it feels testy. I'm sorry, I can't. Honestly, anxiety, sweaty palms. I'm okay.
So in terms of your view on relationships, do you think you think eventually it's a case of you'll eventually sort of bump into somebody who's on that train of, you know what, I'm not trying to change either. Let's kind of crack on this way. In terms of
never say never.
Not that you're a cynic about relationships. Although
you can call me a cynic if you want. I'm fine with that.
But do you feel like what do you see? Do you think like eventually you'll find somebody, or are you just like, you know, I genuinely actually really couldn't give a shit in terms of, or like I'm
actually both. I couldn't give a shit, but I also am not.
You're not a complete cynic, like
no, I'm not closed off to it, but I'm not. I don't crave it. I don't search for it.
It's not like
if it happens, yeah. But also at the same time it doesn't.
It's not dependent on your overall happiness. Okay.
Nah, not at all. But if I was in a relationship, I wouldn't change. No. So that's my final thoughts. Is I would not be the person that would just accept things. If that
and I feel like you should be true to yourself.
I don't know. Do you think we're gonna make it? No.
What? Sorry.
Do you think we're gonna make it?
Probably not. That's I tell you what, only knows.
On the thing about happiness and relationships. Do you still feel like people should still try and strive for happiness, or do you after the conversation, do you still feel like do you feel like now there is an element of take happiness where you can, but
I think you should definitely take happiness when you can. I just think you should just try to be as true to yourself as possible.
I think Laura being Laura, this isn't a negative thing, so don't.
No.
She will be.
No, I won't.
But she's like more of a romanticized person.
I think
I think she, we can say.
I love love.
No, but that's not what I mean. We can say that about happiness. You're not going to feel happiness.
Mm-hmm.
Blah blah blah. But you'll still strive for it.
Yeah.
Lost train of thought.
I think
I think you're absolutely right.
I strive for it, but I think at the same time, I think in the circumstances when it shows itself, I think she has the ability to be a realist.
So what you said, like after this, do you see it in a different way?
Yeah.
And I think Laura's the kind of person that like she'll see your opinion.
Yeah.
I see it. I hear it.
But you know, do you know what I mean? Like you're.
No, I do.
Do you think you should always strive for happiness? You're going to say yes to that.
I think you should always. I think you should always try and be happy. But I do understand.
At the same time,
it's not good.
But she's not going to.
Yeah. No, I completely
No, I do agree. I do completely get it. And I think that happiness is a big thing.
Whereas I don't think you should strive for happiness all the time.
Yeah. I think
I think it's being realistic. And I think to be fair, Sammy, I think you probably will have seen this. I think you must see a difference. Like, I think the old me, the earlier journey with me and him, I strive for it so much. It was crippling. Does that make sense? Like, because that's all I really wanted. And I really fought with the battles that we had. And I was like, why is it like this? This shouldn't be this hard. Whereas I think now I've kind of gone to more acceptance on the fact that we're very different. And I will take and embrace the good times that we have. And there are going to be moments where it's not always going to be the way that, sunshine and roses. Do you know what I mean?